Welcome to the All Talk Conference. Week 9 is in the books, and it was a boring one.
It sure
and
was.
it and we got
Shut
the
up.
to see the rankings tonight, which were a little controversial. But tonight we'll start out, and we're just going to talk about a few games this week. Then we're going to go into the rankings because that's what we all want to hear about anyway. The first game we're going to talk about is Ohio State at Penn State. What are y'all's thoughts on that game?
I think Ohio State just came out and it was a pretty close game, and then Ohio State just took control. Uh, I mean, you're lighting that on fire. Didn't a house burn down next to yours just last week? Like, I'm being serious. Like, I called
Yeah,
you
it
all
really,
concerned.
it
I'm like,
really
dude,
did.
someone told me that your house is on fire, and I'm calling Aaron. I'm like, dude, are you all right? But no, Penn State kind of just, I mean, they were coming back, and then Ohio State just straight up swamped them at the end. You like that word, Michael? Swamp. That's the only pun I'm throwing out there for
This
Florida.
is how I feel about Penn
Thanks,
State.
bro.
By the way, Michael Hoover is on, longtime friend of ours and huge Florida Gator fan. Give us that Gator chomp. I'm not going to do it.
Woo! Oh, Chris Farley.
Chris Farley.
Chris Farley.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Seriously, this is gonna be fun. I do want to warn everyone though. I'm a little bit of a cynical Gator fan today, but that's okay.
Good.
Well, I didn't burn my house down, so we're good. I just had to burn that because I'm so disappointed in the performance. They started out, played well, had a lead in the fourth quarter, and then it just all fell apart. So here's my question for all of you. Are you impressed with Ohio State, or is it just kind of like, they got by?
Okay, so my audio cut out during the live feed, so I wanted to kind of put this in there. But basically, what I'm saying here is that I think Ohio State is exactly who we thought they would be. That they would take care. The game against Michigan will
Yeah,
basically take care
Maryland.
of any of our concerns about Ohio State, whether they're
Crap game?
fraudulent or not.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, dude. The ending of that game, it was like Penn State's gonna win. Then boom, boom, boom. Hey, let me just throw you some passes. Give you a few fumbles and turnovers so we can make it look like you killed us so you can be ranked in front of Georgia. It was just a big setup. Any other thoughts on that game though, real quick? I mean, there's not much to say. Penn State led, and then Ohio State scored like 3 touchdowns in like 30 seconds, and then it was over.
No,
I think
I've
you
got
covered it.
TCU at West Virginia. TCU remains undefeated. Honestly, Morgantown is a tough place to go and play. I know they're bad. West Virginia isn't good, but we saw TCU kind of manage a comeback again and beat them on the road.
The TCU West Virginia game, I'm not discrediting TCU at all. I mean, you got to drive all the way, you got to go all the way to West Virginia. And West Virginia they're not a very good team, but they're a decent team, in my opinion.
Yeah, they're pretty
Does
good.
not speak for itself, but that's a tough place to play. So when you look at that from bottom to end, road games are not easy, especially when you're driving all the way across the country or midway through the country from Texas all the way to West Virginia. I mean, it's going to be that kind of game, and that's how I expected that game to really pan out.
Yeah. And after I saw West Virginia take down Baylor on Thursday night a couple weeks ago, I was like, man, they're just good at home. And I've lived in West Virginia. That's a tough place to play, a tough place to. Those fans are crazy, dude. I mean, they're burning couches in the middle of the stadium. I mean, they're wild. So
In the middle of
TCU got out of. No, I made that part up. But hey, if they do win, they do burn couches. That is true. It's weird as crap. But TCU survived and they won by 10. They won by 2 possessions, and that's what counts at the end of the day. They're 8-0. They're cruising. Any thoughts? Any more thoughts on that one?
No, that's pretty much it for me. If
Yeah,
y'all
you
got
got it, man.
Notre Dame at Syracuse. Notre Dame wins.
This one surprised me a little bit. Just because the up and down season Notre Dame has had, I thought Syracuse would be ramped up and ready to, take vengeance out on Notre Dame, especially what happened with them in the Clemson game last week. I mean, last week their offense stalled out in the second half, and I'm like, well, surely they fixed this whole situation when they go and play Notre Dame. And Syracuse had the game at home too, so I'm not surprised Notre Dame won. I'm just surprised at how they won. Like, it was a much bigger margin than I thought was
Mhm.
feasibly possible.
Syracuse's quarterback did get hurt though, which doesn't take away from the fact they gave up 41 points. They lost the game 41-24. I picked Notre Dame to win this game. I thought it would be close, low scoring. Notre Dame actually impressed me. They had a bye week, I believe. And man, I think that Notre Dame's turning a corner. They're going to give Clemson a challenge this Saturday night, in my opinion. We can talk about that a little bit later. Then one that
wrong order, Dustin.
Yeah. I know one Hoover's going to want to talk about is the mighty Florida Gators put on a show against the Georgia Bulldogs. I mean, man, they made it a one-score game in the third quarter. So, I mean, Billy Napier probably deserves an extension and $12 billion or something.
An extension. Oh my God. Listen, I know I said at the top, I'm a cynical Gator fan right now, and it's only because it's kind of this weird thing. It's like every single game I am hopeful, and every day I'm hopeful, but at the same time, a decade plus of mediocrity is just, I'm just tired of seeing us soft. And so now I will say this season is going pretty much like I thought. Maybe a little worse. I thought we might have 7-5, and if Anthony Richardson was who we were hoping he would be, anything could happen. 8-4, 9-3, whatever. But those were like the ceilings if everything went right. And AR is not quite who we were hoping he would be, at least not this year. And honestly, this is a whole culture rebuild. And so, as a fan, any Florida fan that's like on the Fire Billy train, I'm like, guys, stop that. This is ridiculous.
No, he's a good coach.
I agree. He's a great coach. And I mean, it may not work at Florida. I don't know, but this is year one. We are 8 games in, and all of our losses have come against ranked opponents.
I noticed that.
And honestly, we played Tennessee really well. That was one of our better games of the year. So I'm not worried about the future. I am suffering through a terribly unwatchable season right now. And so I'm proud of us for not giving up yet. Like, man, I almost gave up in the game on Saturday, and those guys could have, and they didn't. Props to them. But as soon as y'all got that next touchdown where you just ran it down our throats, I was like, all right, that's it.
Yeah, I think the fight of Florida is really what stood out to me. I mean, this is a team that every time I've watched Georgia go out there and kind of step on their throat at the beginning of the game, they just fell apart, and it's been bad. And that's been the history of this rivalry. If Georgia jumps on them, except in 2020, Kyle Trask got them back in the game pretty quick.
I miss that, man.
But most of the time, we've seen it just go completely sideways when they get down by 3 touchdowns or so. And this time they gave a good fight back, a valiant effort. I worry about Florida in the sense of I like Napier a lot, but, man, Tennessee being on the rise is not helping their situation. So we'll see how Florida goes. It was a clean win for Georgia. Georgia just went to sleep, man. They thought they were going to sleepwalk through the second half, and Florida – They came to play. They kept playing, which says a lot about a team. So I think you should be proud, even though it's hard to lose. It's one of those moments where it's like, at least they kept fighting. Oklahoma State at Kansas State. What do y'all think?
Okay, once again, this was before my audio got fixed, but what I was saying here is that I was giving props to Napier for not only the performance in the Tennessee game for continuing to play, but also in the Georgia game when the game was seemingly over, he continued to coach. Whereas the clown, Mullen, would have already given up. And
is the clown Mullen?
Yeah.
Is the clown Mullen?
I know him as Darth Vader, so I don't.
Dustin, what'd you have?
I just want to add that one of Brenton Cox's last plays as a Florida Gator was pushing a Georgia player's head on, and that was it. He was so bad right there. I'm like, I love that because I can't stand that dude. He's a great player. I don't know what his issue is. I've heard that he's swung on a coach. I've heard that it's just he's a toxic person and he just needs to get out of there. Me and Michael have talked about a little bit about it and everything like that. I think we're all on the same page that the dude, he was a problem at Georgia too. He just needs to go. So we'll see.
Dan Mullen would take anybody, bro.
Yeah.
Oh,
He didn't
dude.
care.
and no accountability whatsoever. Marco Wilson throws an LSU guy's shoe across the field. Next play, he's right in that game. Right in that game. Next play. Don't get me started. Now
It's the same problem Jimbo's having at A&M right now.
Yep. Yeah, and listen, Dustin, I talked to you a lot over the last few years with Mullen. I was on board with him all the way through until like the last 5 games last year, and it just was like I've never seen a floor fall through so quickly. And once it fell through, you were like, "Oh, this has been hollow the whole time." Like just the lack when he got fired. And Napier came in and started fixing things systematically, and we started hearing about what Napier was doing systematically. We were like, "We're not doing this already."
Yeah.
How? Like these are the basics, and Mullen literally didn't care about recruiting. And so there's recruiting, there's lack of accountability, and Napier has shown that he cares deeply about both. So I'm in on the Napier train, but this year is rough. So,
All
He's gonna
right,
be
so-
good, man.
yeah, I believe it.
I hope not, but we'll see. Oklahoma State at Kansas State.
Heard
I
myself.
mean, really, do we have anything to say other than wow?
Dude, wow. Yeah, I just had to bring it up for the sake of 48-0. The backup quarterback's playing for K-State, and Adrian Martinez ain't going to have a job. That man is fired. Oklahoma State completely fell apart, but there's not much to say. I just want to bring it up because of the dominance.
It's
Yeah.
crazy,
Brandon
man.
Burns
Yep.
is a happy man.
Yeah. It's
What
just wrong.
else?
Ole Miss and Texas A&M.
All right, I think I got my
Um,
stuff working. Let me know if you can hear me, Josh.
The next Auburn coach over there at Ole Miss.
Hold on.
Oh, maybe. The lane train
Victory.
is going to Auburn.
Can you see?
Oh,
Can you see my? Let me.
It
turn
keeps
this-
going like into your
into the butt.
background.
It keeps going
Yeah.
into the butt. But, you know.
I should have done this before. Anyways, what it says is who hires Matt Rule?
Yo, I don't think Matt Rule goes anywhere. The dude is getting paid to chill right now. Not at least this season. Maybe next year.
Yeah.
Nah, I think Matt Rule does go coach somewhere this year. There's some good openings. You got Wisconsin, Nebraska, Auburn's now open. I think there's a possibility that Dave Aranda could go somewhere else and Baylor could come back open. I think there's a lot of possibilities for Matt Rule. I hope he doesn't go in the SEC because he's a good coach, man. He's turned around some programs. But yeah, Ole Miss at Texas A&M. Texas A&M played him closer than I thought. But Jim Blow still blows. He's horrible, man. Dude, I'd pay the man. If I had that kind of money and I was rich, I'd pay him $95 million just to get the heck out of town. Heck, I'll pay him $100 million just so I'll never have to see his face.
Hey, I mean, that's what Matt
he's
Rule's doing
horrible.
right now. Matt Rule's living that life. He's getting paid to chill. Just, I mean,
Yeah.
So is Brian
Sweat
Harsin.
thinks-
bro,
Sweat thinks that Auburn's hiring Matt Rule.
no, Auburn's hiring the assistant that you know what I'm about to say.
No, I think that's a possibility, Sweat. I've thought about Matt Rule and the possibility. I'm more on the side of I think Lane Kiffin or Hugh Freeze is going to go to Auburn.
I've seen
So
Hugh
we'll
Freeze
see.
mentioned. I've seen Hugh Freeze's name float around a few times.
He's
Hugh
got a
Freeze
huge
has mentioned
contract.
every coaching
Yeah,
carousel.
every single time.
one.
No,
So
here's
was
my
Lane Kiffin, by the way.
Yeah,
my
I saw
prediction.
that was the two names that I saw. It was like Lane Kiffin and Hugh Freeze. I'm like, all right, well, Lane Kiffin's not going anywhere right now.
No, I think Lane Kiffin might go, man. They've got a
To
pot
Auburn?
of NIL
Really?
money. Dude, they've got a pot of NIL money
I don't
that is
know.
massive. Ole Miss doesn't have that kind of money. Lane
But
Kiffin's going to go to Auburn, and then Hugh Freeze is going back to Ole Miss.
Oh God!
Oh my god! No, but seriously,
He's like-
when Jim McElwain was fired from Florida, everyone was like Hugh Freeze or Lane Kiffin, and when Dan Mullen was fired, everyone was like Hugh Freeze or Lane Kiffin.
I thought
You
it was
probably
Chip
should have
Kelly
took
was in
that advice.
situation. No,
Um,
Deion Sanders is going to Auburn, guys.
Okay,
I'm
let me
calling
turn
it
that
here
down.
now. And then
Get
I
him
don't know
there
what's
instead of
gonna
Florida
happen.
State.
I don't know what happened with Deion Sanders and Nick Saban with their Aflac commercial. I don't know how they're going to mutually agree on that going forward. So
yeah. So anyway, let's kind of move on so we can get to the playoff rankings. We got Kentucky at Tennessee. Man, I completely wrong, and I will say this: I've been high on Kentucky all year, and I'm not trying to dismiss what Tennessee did in that game on Saturday, but I think that was more of Kentucky has an old school offense that sucks. I thought they'd turn it on. They hadn't scored more than 27 points all year. Tyler kept telling me that, and I was like, no, they'll turn it on this week. And they didn't. It was bad. It is ugly at Kentucky. And honestly,
Will Levis is the number 1 pick. What are you talking
No,
about?
he's
dude.
horrible.
He's horrible.
He is horrible, dude.
I agree. I'm
don't
kidding.
even
That's so
get how
ridiculous.
he's in the first round pick. I don't get it at all.
Yeah,
I wouldn't even draft him.
I laid it out in pretty good detail about what I thought about Kentucky's offense, and like I said, it would have taken some kind of freak miracle for that offense to be able to keep up in a shootout with the Tennessee. But Tennessee's defense showed up too, so
Yeah,
it was just bad on all fronts. It was just a
That's
bad storm for Kentucky.
That was the best defense I've seen from Tennessee all season. I was shocked at how well they were playing. Like, I got so
Yeah.
irritated with the game, I turned it off.
That's bad. That's how it is when you play a horrible offense, though.
Yeah.
C-Rod was the only thing they had going for him. Levis looked horrible. But anyway, that kickstarts us into the playoff rankings because we talked about Tennessee, and we just found out that Tennessee is the number 1 team in the country. I think we all expected that. If Tennessee wasn't, I would have a huge problem with this playoff committee, even more than I already do. But what are y'all's thoughts? Did y'all think anybody but Tennessee in that number 1 spot?
No, Tennessee. I would like same with you. If Tennessee wasn't in that spot, I was definitely worried about where the rankings were going to go after that because Tennessee has the best resume to this point by far. So I can't.
I agree. They have the best resume. I kind of still had Georgia as number 1 because honestly, when I look at the top 4 or 5, the top however many, this is a bunch of there's not one just elite team out of all of these. Like all of them have their flaws. And Tennessee, the close up I got of Tennessee was my team, Florida, almost beating them. And so to me, I thought I'm like, maybe I think Tennessee's having a great year. It pains me to say it, but I didn't have them as number 1, but they deserve it with their schedule for sure. I don't disagree, but I personally probably would have kept Georgia up there amongst all the flawed teams because you guys aren't perfect for sure, but
No,
We're close to it, though.
No, we're not.
I mean, and I think so, Tennessee. But what about putting Ohio State at number 2? This is where I have a real problem with the committee because the committee is sitting there saying, with number 1, they're like, oh, Tennessee's their resume. And then we go to number 2 and they say, oh, Ohio State. Well, they just look good because they're explosive offense. And it's like, Ohio State's played nobody. And to top it off, the only team they played is Penn State, which they were trailing in the 4th quarter against. And Michigan beat the brakes out of that team. And Michigan's at number 5. If that ain't about brand name, then what is it?
They're not playing down to their competition, and I've said that many times.
yeah, I agree with that. They're not playing down to it, and they can only play who is on their schedule, and
Exactly.
they're kind of dominating most games. And then Penn State's not like world beaters, but they're not a bad team. And so
But they did-
them finally having a close game, and they pulled it out. Every team is going to do that.
No, but the opening game of the year was Notre Dame. It was close too. That's the only other valid opponent they've had.
I got a few points from the comments. Number 1 was Josh is pissed that we didn't talk about the game of the week in the 4 overtime Miami versus Virginia game. He's very upset
Who
about
cares?
that.
Who cares?
Dustin Reed.
Only a good game if it goes into 7 overtimes, like LSU and A&M a few years ago.
Exactly.
Dustin Reed says
That's the standard.
Dustin Reed says, and I agree with this, that if Tennessee would lose if they played Bama in a repeat game in the championship neutral site.
Yes.
I
Oh,
agree with that.
100%.
I agree.
Yeah.
And then
But-
let me get the last point, and then we'll go over those 3 things. Josh Sweat is also saying that Ohio State's strength of schedule was higher than Georgia's, and that is true.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that whole stuff is bullcrap, though. How do you even get those ratings? Come on, man. It doesn't make any sense when you look at it. It's like there's no – and y'all are saying Georgia has beat their opponents by 31.5 points. Ohio State's the win margins are 32, so it's the same. It's essentially the same.
I'm going to put this in a way that the committee is thinking forwards by putting basically putting Ohio State 2, knowing good and well that you have 4 teams out of those 6 are going to play each other over the next 5 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks.
Yeah. Ultimately, it doesn't matter, I guess. But
That's the big. I think that's the biggest thing to me. But I think it sets them up for like a safety in case, let's say you have a Tennessee beat Georgia and puts them out of the top 4. You have a Ohio State beats Michigan. It keeps them out of the top 4, and it gives you the ability to slide. You basically can plug and play at that point with TCU or Alabama, because Alabama's going to end up playing whoever is in that national the not national, but the SEC championship, and that'll wash one of the other, either Tennessee or Alabama, out of that top 4 anyways, and then you can plug and play with whoever's left. I think they set them up for the safest bet, but it's going to create they're basically the opposite side of that is creating pure chaos for themselves by the time that doesn't happen, and they're having to weed through different teams like Georgia, Tennessee having one loss or potentially one loss, with an Alabama with one loss. And you have basically a storm of people furious that, like TCU fans, that they're going to get left out of the playoffs and they won their championship or they won their conference. So this is just going to scream for expansion.
Yeah, I mean, we got a new member, by the way. I want to hear this one's thoughts.
Can he do the Gator jump?
Oh, he can do it with my help.
Say go Dogs.
He will never say that. He didn't even hear that. Don't put that evil on me.
Yeah, Dustin.
What are you gonna say, Dustin?
Go ahead. Sorry, I was talking about the other Dustin.
The only problem I have with the picks is, or the rankings, was simply that Michigan got left out and Clemson got put in. What? That was my biggest thing. Like, I just did not. I thought Michigan was deserving of that 4th spot more so than Clemson was.
Dude, I don't understand TCU at 7. That ticks me off too, because if we go by strength of schedule, like you're saying, our strength of record, TCU's was better.
Because TCU's let's play like all of their games from behind. It seems. I think
because their name's TCU.
Well, that too. I mean, they're definitely playing name brand here. I don't think we can ignore that. And that's.
Do you think that West Virginia game hurt them?
I think so.
But Clemson has struggled with everyone they've played. And you can't even there's no debate. First of all, how's Clemson in front of Michigan? But
it's
then
ridiculous.
We go further than that. How are they in front of TCU? Clemson should be at number 6, if not 7. If we're going to put Bama in front of it, should be TCU at 4, in my opinion, and Clemson at 7. If that's how you're going to do it, like, it makes no sense. TCU's played a tough schedule, and the reason some of their people aren't ranked is because of how tough the Big 12 is.
I think this goes to a point where the playoff committee just gets lazy, and they're like, well, Clemson's going to go undefeated, they think, because they don't really have any good opponents left, with maybe North Carolina looming in an ACC championship, which is what me and Aaron think.
Notre Dame's a good one.
But then the Notre Dame this weekend, I just hope Clemson loses, but I'm not picking against Clemson anymore.
Louisville's hot too right now, man. Louisville just thumped Wake Forest.
Too, but I think Clemson, talent-wise, they're just better. I don't think they're going to lose a game.
Here's my thing, though. If we want, if in the way I look at it, if we're actually looking at if these matchups happen, we're going to all sit here and agree. Do we not think that Alabama would beat Ohio State?
Yeah, but that's not how they do these rankings. Like, they can't sit there with hypotheticals.
Yeah. No, I'm not. I understand it's not about hypotheticals, but if we're looking at it from objectives, like if they're playing a game, I guess with Alabama and Ohio State, that's not a good one because Ohio State's on. But if you're looking at TCU and Clemson, who would y'all honestly say wins that game? If they both played it out, who would win the game on a neutral side?
Which two again?
I don't know.
TCU, Clemson.
It'd be a good one, man.
It'd be a good game.
It'd be a good game.
All right,
It'd be a good one.
Like, I think an awesome Rose Bowl right there. Like, that's what I want to see.
What I watched, the way that he explained the some of the reasoning behind the picks, it really seemed like they started with strength of schedule and they plug and placed them there, and then once they got past strength of schedule and they had arguments for a team at 4 and 5 and they were trying to figure out who, it started becoming the infamous eye test, and we have no idea what that actually means because we have 11 idiots on a conference table that legitimately are probably just
BCS bowl is better.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. Just like Josh, there's no consistency in it, and that's what makes it so frustrating. And it just screams expansion. I mean, granted, they're already talking about
getting it soon.
I know,
but I just don't understand why we went to a committee. Why did we not just take the BCS standings and do the top 4?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep.
They got the top two right most years. There was occasionally you could say, oh, that there
Notre
3
Dame.
or 4 could have been in it. But
Yeah, Notre Dame.
I mean, that was right though. Notre Dame was undefeated that year. There was no one else to put in there.
But
Yeah.
Auburn got left
I'm
out
saying
with
they
it.
would have lost in the first round of the playoff. I agree with that, but
I think I would have rather seen another Georgia-Alabama rematch rather than watching
I think the
Alabama
whole
absolutely
country can attest to
destroy
that.
Yeah.
you
Notre
can't put a
Dame.
2-loss. You cannot put a 2-loss Georgia in over an undefeated Notre Dame.
No, but
if
this
a
is-
playoff happened, yes, it would have worked that way.
No, but that's exactly it. That's what the expansion does. It allows teams that lose to each other in the regular season or the conference championship to have another shot at one another.
But-
granted, a decent season.
Are we going to have a dumb playoff committee to do this expansion, or are we going to go by
I
the
think
BCS rankings?
no, I think it's
because
gonna
we don't
be-
need a playoff committee anymore. We
Well,
need the top 12.
I think they're going to have to set some guidelines for an expansion with six or 8 teams, whatever. You're going to say like, all right, the conference champions get in no matter if they're 9 and whatever. It doesn't matter. You get in, you win your conference, you get in. Like I think that's fair. And then you start looking at the at-larges, you start pulling these teams like a Tennessee that's 11-1 or whatever that didn't win their conference or didn't play in the conference championship, or Georgia that didn't play in their conference championship, whatever, what have you, and you start putting those as your at-larges. It makes it easier.
Yeah, I mean, I get how it's going to work. I'm saying that.
No,
it's
I'm saying that
stupid
they
we
need
have
to
13 people around the table. Right
yeah,
now.
no, I'm just saying they need to set those standards so we don't run into this every year where they're just
A
like
computer sets it for us.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, either way, whatever parameters they set, it needs to stick to it instead of being like, oh, the eye test or the strength of schedule. Well, this is
Michael, what do you say about this BCS thing? What are your thoughts on? Because you keep saying yeah over there, so I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I'm with you, Aaron. I mean, mostly at least, but because I remember being frustrated at the BCS stuff beforehand, but it was a lot more. It felt a lot. Basically, ever since we started doing this playoff thing, we've had like 4 or 5 different teams in the championship total. Like
Yeah.
Mhm.
it just seems like the problem with humans in a committee doing this is that they're going to go off of what y'all been talking about, the eye test, and off of the branding. And Ohio State versus Alabama, yeah, that's sexy. Now Clemson versus Alabama, that's sexy now. But I mean, who wants to watch TCU versus Tennessee in the championship? I mean, I do,
Actually,
but
that
yeah,
sounds pretty
I would
good.
love to see Tennessee lose it, but I just think that there seemed to be more parity back then, and we were all complaining that a computer was doing it back then. Though I remember no way in this is perfect because we were all complaining about that way too. So
Well, I just
don't
think the
know.
computer problem was that there was only 2 slots though. If you go to and there's 4
Great point.
slots and it's the top 4, then there's no problem with it. I
agree.
remember back
Yep.
in 03, or what was it? It might have been 04, where Auburn got gypped out of playing for a national title and they were undefeated. Guess what? A computer, if you do top 4, the BCS would have had the right 4 and it would have been a great playoff. 2007, could y'all imagine the madness in the playoff? If you would have had the top
Yeah.
4 BCS teams?
Yeah.
That was a
yeah.
crazy year. That would have been a good year.
Instead
I
of
think you're right. Let the computer do because dude, the analytics nowadays, all of this stuff is crazy accurate. Like the stuff that you hear out of Vegas nowadays is like, wow, they nailed that all the time. And so, like, to me, leaving it up to a computer and algorithm like that, it seems weird, but it also makes a lot of sense, especially if you take the top 4. I don't know. It does. It makes more sense to, especially now that we have like, how many years has the playoff been going now?
9
Like,
years.
Since 2014.
yeah. So ever since, like, we have a good sample size now to say, man, it seems like the same teams every time. Like, it's just kind of this like frustrating process every time. So
and I
it
even
doesn't
think with the
help
12-team playoff, it still do it, except insert the conference champions, take
Mhm.
the last 2 out. But what were you saying, Dustin?
I said it doesn't really help though with those 9 teams or those 5 teams making the championship, and that Alabama's been number 1 ranked 24 times or 24 weeks in the CFP. I mean, Alabama has essentially just dominated this whole thing since the playoff has come out, and even so much prior to that. But
Yeah.
I get what we're saying. Expansion is what needs to happen, and I
There's-
think everyone's going to agree. it's going to be better. We're going to be at peace having it 12 teams. I mean, you're still going to have some people that are going to argue that lingering in that 13 through 15 spot where they're like, we should have been in, we only had one loss. But I mean, when you get into that 13 and 15 ranking spot, or 13 through 15 ranking spot, how many of those teams are going to have 2 losses? It's going to be.
I've got a better explanation, and we saw this last year. We're seeing this right now. What other sport has a playoff system that you're punished or not or left out for winning your division? We've seen it happen in baseball with the wild card. You've got teams that barely win their division or don't win their division and make it in the that have enough wins to make it in the wild card, end up winning the World Series. Okay, you have the same situation here where you only have 4 spots and you got 5 main conference champions, and you're going to leave most likely 2 to 3 of them out in the favor of 2 teams from one conference, and then 2 from another. So you've only got representing 3 conferences in the playoffs. 4 was never going to work and isn't going to work. It's always screamed expansion, because even at 2, you're like, okay, well, we got 2. Yeah, we may get the 2 best teams in the country, but are we really going to punish a team for losing the game, like the first 2 games, or the first game of the year against an out of conference opponent that was on a neutral site? Where they're still trying a new head coach, whatever. I'm looking at you, Oregon. Like there's doesn't seem fair to me. Like and I know everybody's like all up in arms about fairness. It's not necessarily what I'm on about here. I'm trying to make an argument for giving people credit for winning their conferences and giving them a chance to show it.
No, I'm with you.
And I think that's the most important thing the committee is ignores. They're just like, oh, what is sexier? And we all see that. That's just.
But the thing is, they don't actually like the thing is, it's all vanilla every year.
Yeah.
They just go with
what looks best. That's all they want.
Yeah, and it's not about if you're saying the 4 best teams, whatever the heck that means. It's all about the eye test if you say that. Like because Kansas State doesn't play Georgia, so you don't know. The Big 12 doesn't really cross over, so you don't know the competition, so you can't say that. It's the 4 most deserving teams. I'm so tired of the 4 best. It's not the 4 best. That's dumb. It shouldn't be the 4 best, because you can't do that unless you expand the playoff. Then you can find out who the best teams are. But without it, and so we there's a lot of thoughts on these playoff rankings. What are some teams that are kind of below that line, that top 7, top 8? Because we all believe Oregon has a shot. Well, I think we all think Oregon could get in, but who's kind of a sleeper? Like on the show tonight, they mentioned Illinois and UNC, and those are 2 teams that we've talked about a little bit that could end up running the table. Do y'all see any valid teams that could possibly jump from being in the teens to the top 4 by the end of the year?
No, I don't.
No, unless Ole Miss goes on some sort of crazy thing, but I don't think that's. Yeah, that's the only one I could see. But
that one or LSU would be the only other one I think could potentially sneak in. But that would take them.
They've gotten better every game.
Right,
they're getting better and better, man.
And how
evolving? That is the perfect example of a team that's evolved.
They are a blocked extra point away from being ranked in the top 6. Or better. I mean, if they win, beat Alabama and run the table and make it to the SEC championship, you gotta have. I mean, that's a 2.
Their path is hard.
Their path is very hard. There's a lot to have.
They got to beat Bama and Georgia or Tennessee, and that's
right.
I don't see it.
It's very, very unlikely. But just in a hypothetical situation, because that's all this is until it actually happens, is that you have a situation where you could potentially have a 2-loss. SEC champion, and you're like, oh well, if you got 1 loss, sorry, we're just not looking at you. It's just so annoying.
I think North Carolina by far has the best shot to be the team, the easiest schedule, the easiest time to get there, to be the team that floats in there. I don't see LSU doing it, but North Carolina's got the schedule and could win the ACC, and Clemson I don't think is that far ahead of them.
I'm going to throw UCLA in there for just good measure. UCLA wins out, and then they replay Oregon because Oregon's going to be in that Pac-12 championship, and then they beat Oregon, so they redeem the team they lost to.
Oh, Chip Kelly would love that.
I think UCLA's got a good shot, but that's really the only 2, like UCLA and there was one more. Who did I say? TCU could. I bet that.
Well, TCU is one of the teams that obviously if they went out, they're in for sure.
I want Oregon in badly.
But But my thing is, when you look at UCLA, and I'm with UCLA, I like UCLA, but their path is harder than North Carolina's still. They have to play USC and then a potential rematch in the Pac-12 title. As to North Carolina, really, they should win out pretty easy. They play Wake, which Wake's struggling, and then Clemson in the ACC title.
But their path being tougher makes them ever more deserving to get in the playoff versus North Carolina.
Yeah, but I don't. The thing is, I agree with you. Yeah, definitely. If they were to win out and North Carolina wins out, I'd take UCLA. But the reason I say the path is because I think we're looking at it from this small window. But we all know this is going to work itself out. A one-loss Power 5 conference champion has never been left out of the college football playoff ever.
And we stress about it every year.
Yeah, and every year we get to this point and we're like, oh, it's going to happen. If North Carolina wins out and wins the conference, I think they're in, man. I think enough teams are going to lose, and they will get in over
Yeah, they can take Clemson
SEC
spots. Clemson can go unranked. I don't care.
They'll get in over a one-loss Georgia or Tennessee that didn't win their conference.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The more I look at the way that all of this is going to play out, I find it very, very hard because of how competitive everyone is this year compared to years past, that they're going to be able to put more than one SEC team in.
Me too.
It's going to be very difficult, and the only exception to that is a very weird, almost impossible situation where you have a bunch of like Georgia loses to Tennessee loses to Alabama, and all this other craziness. Possible, but I don't.
Dustin has an argument for 3, though. What do you think?
It's the same thing. It's just.
All right, for the 3 to happen, what it's going to entail is you're going to have Michigan and Ohio State lose another game somewhere. I don't know if it's like Ohio State to Maryland or whoever's got Michigan's got left on the schedule, and then Ohio State beat Michigan. Something in the Big Ten is going to happen. The Pac-12 is going to have to cannibalize himself, and the Big 12 is going to have to cannibalize himself where they have 2 losses. So with those 3 situations happening, then you're looking at the ACC. In addition to that, the ACC would have to have a 1 or 2 loss team in there as well. And then Georgia would have to beat Tennessee. And then Bama would have to beat Georgia in the SEC championship, giving Bama 1 loss, Georgia 1 loss, Tennessee 1 loss. That's the only case that's going to happen. But there's so many moving parts for that. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it is extremely unlikely for something like that, because a lot of moving parts across the country have to happen for that to work.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the Big Ten is getting a team in regardless. So I think you count them. They're the one that's a shoe-in. I can agree, though, that the Big 12 is a toss-up. I like TCU. They're 8-0. Honestly, though, you're looking at, and y'all going to say it's crazy, Baylor was our preseason pick, and I know they're sitting at 5-3 right now. They're an experienced team that's playing better down the stretch. Oh, gosh, get the clown off the screen. But I'm saying the Big 12 is wide open for anybody, and the Pac-12 is wide open, Dustin. So I'm with you. You could have a Utah win the Pac-12.
I mean, it's
2 losses.
It's not crazy.
You could have a Baylor win with 3 losses.
Right. I mean, there's still a lot of football to play out, but I mean, do I think 3 SEC teams are going to get in? No. Do I think 2 SEC teams can get in? Absolutely.
All right.
Josh, that's my point though, is by saying that, like, I don't think that anybody else at that that in the teens, like Aaron was saying, has a chance to get in. It's because they don't control their own destiny. They have to have an upset. That's more of what I was.
UNC controls their own destiny, though.
Yeah, but I mean, that's different. That's a different story. I think that most other teams that have more than 1 loss don't control their own destiny. They would need some kind of miracle to get in. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I agree with that. UNC and Illinois are the only 2 teams in the teens that actually control their own destiny. If Illinois wins out,
I mean, you win, you're in. I mean,
Ten,
that's fine.
in.
Yeah, everybody else that are kind of mixed into that, I don't necessarily. That's too much chaos for me to comprehend at this point. Maybe like oh god, he's got the
what's he drinking there? Is that a Fanta or
that's got a
Fresca?
It's the man.
Oh,
Don't make me throw this golf ball at you.
So let's talk a little bit about the Georgia-Tennessee game this week. That's what we all want to hear about.
Oh God,
big matchup. This is probably the biggest matchup in Athens that that's happened in my lifetime.
Let's hear what Michael has to say first. As an unbiased Florida fan that has no stock in this game, other than he hates Tennessee.
and
Georgia.
And Georgia.
Who do you hate more out of that pair, though? Is the question.
Georgia.
I hate Georgia more. I hate Georgia more. It's just an extra grossness this year because Tennessee is also very good, and I really hate it. No, okay, so I think that this week is I think it's gonna be a great game. It's gonna be a good game to watch, all seriousness. I have a hard time. To me, I kind of think that Tennessee might lose this one, actually. I just think that this is one of those things that this might be a tired narrative or whatever, but I do think there's something about Tennessee really feeling themselves right now, and they don't know how to do that because Tennessee has not been good in a long time.
And they
really
got that number one spot just now, too.
They did. They got the number one spot.
And Georgia's 3. They didn't even get 2.
That's fine. All fine in my books.
Yeah, and Georgia's probably going to be like feeling like, no, we deserve that number one spot. And I'm just sitting here as a Gator fan, not even ranked underneath UCF, just watching with my, my drink. But I will, if I was to pick, this is a hard game to pick really, because that Tennessee offense is insane. Like it's beautiful to watch, even if it's against you. But honestly, I just think, honestly, my opinion on Kirby as a coach has changed over the years. I really think he's a great coach, and I have a hard time picturing Tennessee really trouncing Georgia. And so if it's a close game, I kind of think Georgia's going to pull out a close one. If it's a close game, I think Georgia's going to pull it out. That's what I would pick. But it's a hard one, man. It's a hard one to pick.
So me and Aaron both we were kind of talking before the show, and I was with Tyler as well. Me and Aaron probably got like every single stat that we possibly could gather from this game. I was supposed to be looking up LSU Alabama stuff, and then I'm at the end of the day, I'm just like, screw it, Bama's going to win. Let's move on. But I got really involved with this Georgia and Tennessee game, and so I started looking at some numbers. And Georgia and Tennessee are pretty much even with 2 exceptions. Okay. And I'll read them out all to you guys if you want to hear them. Penalties, Georgia's 5th, 4 penalties per game. Tennessee is 122nd at 8.5 penalties per game.
And it's in Athens.
There's going to be 8 or 9 false start penalties automatic in Athens. If you've seen last year when we played Kentucky and Arkansas at home, it was awful. They're false start penalties left and right. Next on the list there, when you look at the pass defense, all right, Georgia is 13th in the country with allowing 177 yards. Tennessee is 127th in the country with 300 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, guys. I mean, rough offense, they're completely identical at 200 yards a game. Rush defense, PGA's 5th, Tennessee's 9th. Total offense, Georgia's 2nd. Tennessee's 1st. And then when you look at turnovers, Tennessee wins the edge on turnovers. Red zone efficiency, Georgia's 1st, Tennessee's 6th. It's a lot of evenness there, but there are some key indicators with Tennessee winning the turnover battle and with Georgia winning the penalties per game and the passing defense.
Well, and I want to throw this out there too, Dustin, because everyone's talking about this Tennessee passing attack, and I wanted to say it when you were talking about the passing yards. Tennessee averages giving up 300 passing yards a game. And honestly, obviously that's a lot of passing yards in a single game. But when we go over to the passing yards per game, Georgia is number 8 in the country, averaging 328 yards a game, while Tennessee is number 2, averaging 353. There's no doubt Tennessee has a better passing offense. I'm not trying to go there. What I'm saying is we're matching up the number 8 passing offense in the country against the number 127 passing defense, compared to the number 2 passing offense to the number 13 passing defense. I will take that every time. And to top it off, it's not even like Tennessee has not even played. They played the number 3. They played Bama, which is a really good offense. I mean, they kind of hammered it up. But other than that, offensively, it's not like they've played any powerhouses. Neither has Georgia, besides Oregon. Oregon has the number 3 offense in the country. And remember, and I know everyone says, oh, it's week 1, it doesn't matter, but it does matter because it could keep Oregon out of the playoff. So it matters. Georgia beat their brains in. I think the game's going to be close, but I think when you take those stats, and even when we talk about the run defense, Tennessee has a really good run defense, but Georgia also has a better running attack than Tennessee. Not by much. Georgia has the number 23 rush offense in the country, while Tennessee has the number 25. And then on scoring offense, you're going to be surprised again. Tennessee's number 1 in the country, but Georgia's number 6. There's not much separation, but when we go over to the defense, there is a lot of separation. Total defense, Tennessee's number 82 in the country. Georgia's number 4.
Anthony Richardson had a great game.
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson had a great game.
Yeah, the more I'm with Dustin, and the only area, and I told Dustin this before the show, the only area Tennessee has a strong, they're better than in, is that their defense has produced 16 turnovers this year, and Georgia's has only produced 9. I'll give them credit there. If Georgia turns the ball over, they will not win this game. But that's kind of, so I'm with you, Dustin. I think that Dustin, as you dug into this game, did you not, I came in like, man, Tennessee might beat us. But as I dug in, did you not feel more confident about Georgia as you looked at all the numbers?
Well, I know this week I was bold and I jokingly said that Georgia was going to win by 24. And then I was like, let me come down to earth a little bit and let's take this joke and, let's move on from this. And I started looking at this, later this afternoon, and I felt even more confident, but I'm not the confident part where I'm thinking it's going to be 24. I think the spread on this game is probably going to be about 10, maybe 13 points. I feel like how the game's going to play out, in my opinion, is because it's home field advantage. If we were playing in Knoxville, I'd feel entirely different about it. I really would. But it being in Athens, I think Georgia's going to come out hot. They're going to score, and Tennessee's going to score right there with them. I think Georgia holds a lead the entire game, and then the fourth quarter, it gets really scary because they start throwing the ball downfield, and we get into some situations where they could potentially score. But I think we win by 10 or 13. I think for Tennessee to win this game, I think they have got to be very mature when they come in, and they cannot allow penalties for themselves. They got to clean their act up. They cannot allow any turnovers. And I really think that they're going to have to be working on all cylinders as far as their defense, their rushing attack, their offensive passing, and in every aspect of this game. I think that's what it's going to take for them to win.
Yeah. They can't get behind the sticks. I think Georgia's going to bring a lot of heat on them. And because Georgia's going to try to set up a 2nd and 13, a 2nd and 15, because if you notice against Kentucky, even the only time Tennessee punted the ball was when they got behind the sticks. Every time they got behind, they had a penalty or a sack or a lost or yards per loss. They ended up punting the ball. But Tyler, you said you had some interesting thoughts about this game. I'd love to hear kind of what your thoughts are on the game, and then we'll each do our score predictions too.
Well, I think I know that you don't credit
Michael
Tennessee's opponents as much, but I think it's hard for me to look at Tennessee's stats and be like, oh, wow, they're really close to Georgia's. And yes, that's true, but I think that Tennessee's resume is a little more impressive in terms of who they've put points on, more so than Georgia. I
agree.
I don't like to say that Georgia hasn't played anybody because that's not true, but Tennessee has played somebody's, and they've put a lot of points on somebody's. That being said, the Kentucky game, I kind of expected to see more out of. I guess I expected to see more from a defensive standpoint from Kentucky. But
who's beating their hand on the desk?
Sorry, that's me. I just don't understand. I guess I don't understand the thought process on Tennessee blowing out Georgia. Is it possible? Sure. Do I see the possibility of it being a low scoring game? Potentially.
Yeah.
This is one of those games that I think that the Tennessee comes out and scores early on and then kind of goes quiet for a little bit. I don't know if Tennessee is going to see an atmosphere like this where it's working against them. All of their bigger games, with the exception of LSU, was all played at home.
Exactly.
That's a big advantage, and I think people take that for granted. As far as I've seen, like I saw some Tennessee fans talking today about it, and it was more or less, it doesn't matter what atmosphere. Georgia's sitting there having to beg their fans to come out and be loud. I don't know if they're ready for that.
That's the dumbest thing.
Hold
I've
on,
ever heard.
we're the only team in the SEC that has sold out 100% of
Yeah,
our games.
Yeah, it's just
Y'all-
rough.
And we go to other places and we take your tickets.
It's
at
one-
the
it's-
at the 50-50 neutral site this past weekend, y'all had more fans than ours.
Yeah,
Like-
I think it was like 70-30 or something.
Yeah,
like that.
there's 60-40 at least.
there's too many things working against Tennessee in this game, and I think the nail in the coffin for me is the ranking. You have
Me too.
that's huge, and I don't think
That's me
people. I mean, some people will, but I don't think people ultimately realize how deep that that ranking gets in people's head. There's a reason that Saban hates that kind of talk, and I don't know if Heupel's ready for that yet.
Saban's happy he's number 6.
Yeah, Saban is perfectly fine.
I'm
where
happy
he's at.
Georgia's 3.
I'm happy Georgia's 3. I don't
Someone
want that
find
either.
us a video where he's got his lisp and he's saying, "We're first. We're
So
first."
that being said, just like Josh says, Tennessee has to come out and they have to be fast. This is the thing too. If Tennessee gets down, their offense doesn't change. They play the same way regardless. They'll be up tempo. They're gonna be fast. It doesn't matter. Georgia's not the same. You take them out of their comfort zone and they pan. I mean, look, the Missouri game is a perfect example of what goes wrong. But the things for those are my things for Tennessee that work against Tennessee. My things that work against Georgia is themselves. I think Stetson has been incredibly inconsistent most of the year. He's overthrowing people, underthrowing people. We talked about this last week. I just don't. It's not that I don't have faith in him. I've just been
Game in the third quarter.
Worried.
So Billy
Yeah, we
Napier
did.
probably deserves an.
So I don't know. That's just
Yeah.
that's where I'm at.
Yeah. So what y'all real quick score predictions? Everyone give a score prediction for the game.
What did I say earlier? I sent mine in the text. I don't remember.
I have a hard time seeing Tennessee not, even though y'all's defense is good, very good.
Tennessee's going to score.
Tennessee's going to score. I have a hard time seeing them not getting across that 30. So I would say I still would go with you guys though and say 38-31.
All right, what you got, Dustin?
I'm gonna go a little higher. I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say 45-33.
33. How are they going to do that one?
Oh, it's gonna be weird. Something they missed an extra point. Something.
I feel like I think the game's going to be a little lower scoring than we're giving credit for. I actually think a lot of times we get fired up for these offensive matchups, and then we end up – Georgia seems to somehow flip the script on teams. I think they do that Saturday. I think it stays pretty low score. Not super low. I'm going with Georgia 35-23. I think they're going to hold Tennessee to a lot of field goals, and I think Georgia will – in replace, and I think Georgia will control most of the game. I think they're going to come out hot and get up on Tennessee, and then it's just going to be a battle back. I think they keep it close, and then Georgia kind of scores a touchdown at the end to go up 2 and seal the deal. That's kind of my thoughts on it. I think it's going to be a good game, though.
Yeah,
What you got, Tyler?
I was thinking.
go ahead.
I was thinking 38-31 Georgia, somewhere in those lines. It's going to be relatively close. And within a touchdown, I think is reasonable. I could see this game getting out of hand and it being won by 17 on either side. So,
I'm going to say 34-23. Actually, I think Georgia will kick 2 field goals. Anyway, what were you saying, Michael?
No, now that we're done with that, I wanted to ask y'all a question, and I don't want to disrespect because it's actually a beautiful college football story. How is Stetson Bennett still y'all's quarterback? How have y'all done this with Stetson Bennett? How is this a thing?
He's
Like,
good, dude.
so-
5 stars come and go,
So
but Stetson Bennett LSU's quarterback.
if I had to pick
10 years later.
if I had to pick a fault, and I don't even know if it's a true fault. If I had to pick a fault,
I swear he's been here for 10 years.
he has. He's like what, 28?
He's 25.
This man's gonna be filing.
Joe Burrow right now.
This man's gonna be filing for Social Security next year. If I had one thing, I would say it was a general complaint or like a negative report card for Kirby Smart. It's he's loyal to a fault, it seems. But I mean, it works. I can't really fault him in that regard. So
y'all won a championship with Stetson
Yeah.
Bennett. Like what?
yeah, it's
Dude,
wild.
our defense was
It's
insane.
wild.
It
Yeah.
was. You did need the greatest defense of all time to do it. Like,
I don't think Stetson's as bad as everyone thinks. Though.
He's
I think
not.
Stetson's
You know, he's
actually
No,
fine.
good.
he's not bad. I think
He's fine.
He's just been a little inconsistent this year, and we could speculate a million different reasons why. I think ultimately it's just he doesn't have the consistency at wide receiver out on the field, and he's trying to throw it to people.
Exactly.
I just picture you guys, and it honestly like makes me sick to my stomach. But I picture you guys with the 5-star quarterbacks that you recruit that leave. But I picture those guys actually quarterbacking, and I'm like, this would be disgusting if you guys had like a Joe Burrow back there, or like if Jacob Eason panned out, like I just picture that kind of thing, and it's Stetson Bennett that won the national championship.
But man, it's Kirby. He's a great coach, but the one area is he cannot select a quarterback to save his life. Expect it to continue, dude.
Josh,
We're probably gonna have a walk-on next year too.
Josh said he thinks Stetson was a true freshman on Georgia's 1980 national championship team. I like Stetson. He's what the team needs. He's clearly a leader. He's doing the things right. It's hard for me to say no because he's been around the offense for 14 years. I mean, he knows what exactly that Kirby wants. But
Yeah.
you know,
I think
I don't blame you.
I think we're in a situation where experience outweighs talent, and that's where we're at right now with Stetson. But to say that this is his last year has me somewhat excited. I have to admit, because I'm
Dude,
ready
if he wins me a second national title, it doesn't have me excited.
Listen,
Come on, bro. He won us a
Dude, of all
natty.
the guys,
I've been waiting my whole life.
listen, he came
Oh my
he
God.
came back for the NIL money and to get paid. He's gonna retire in Athens, and he's never gonna have to buy another meal in his life.
no,
I
he's
don't know.
not.
I think he's gonna get drafted, bro.
I don't.
No,
I wouldn't even bother with it.
Watch him.
Whatever degrees he's got, just roll on with it.
is
So
he like?
let's move on. We can talk about this all day, but we don't need to stay on the Stetson thing. Hey, I mean, we were going to talk. We talked about breaking down the Bama LSU game, but honestly, we're kind of short on time. And does anyone have any thoughts on how LSU could pull the upset? We'll just go from there in not long, but let's kind of hit it real quick.
I'll hit it real quick.
That's what she said.
LSU has to come out fast on defense like they did at the Ole Miss game. They're just going to have to play real hard at the beginning of the game, and I think that's their ultimate way that they can potentially win this game. I think Alabama's offense is going to be too much for their defense, though, and I think that and it being, the edge to LSU is it's at LSU, and it's a night game because LSU gets all the night game while Georgia never gets a night game this year. So I don't think LSU can win this game. I think it's going to be Bama all the way.
Yeah, LSU has no chance. I'm with you. I want to say they do. They don't.
I'm picking LSU for funds.
Okay.
I will say the game we had against them was not fun to watch, and but I did gain a lot of respect. I never have watched Coach man, what's wrong with me? What Brian Kelly? I haven't watched him really a whole lot because Notre Dame. I don't watch a lot of Notre Dame games, honestly.
Nobody does.
Yeah, but
NBC.
being at LSU, I didn't know how it would all pan out with him at LSU, especially after the family thing and all that. Just I don't know.
I do
But-
declare.
I do declare. I gotta say though, like seeing him. I mean, let's call it like we see it. Billy got out coached against LSU, and Brian Kelly went into that locker room at halftime, and as soon as they came out of halftime, the game was just kind of over. It wasn't a game anymore because of the adjustments Kelly made. And so I do think that they stand a chance because these are two really good coaches against each other. And Both of these teams have a lot of talent. LSU is not as good as they used to be, but they have a lot of talent. So I think it might be closer. I still would pick Bama, but I think it's going to be a closer game. So
I hope LSU wins, but
I don't
see
hate them.
it.
But I also hope Bama loses. Can we?
So, let's move into and just pick our games for this week. We got some good ones this week. It's going to be a little better week than last week. I mean, it can't get any worse, but it opens up on a Friday night, and this is a game worth mentioning simply because my Beavers are now ranked in the top 25. We've got Oregon State at Washington, which Washington has looked pretty good, man. They lost a game to UCLA and then slipped up to Arizona State, but other than that, they're 6-2. Who y'all got in this game?
Washington.
I have no idea. Washington.
Come on, Dusty.
We're gonna go for the clean sweep here. We're gonna pick Washington as well, just because
Oregon
just because
State all the way. Texas Tech at TCU. Real talk. Could Texas Tech get the upset? Does anyone have Texas Tech or everyone going TCU?
No, TCU.
TCU.
Give me the frogs.
TCU all the way. Oklahoma State at Kansas. Oklahoma State looked terrible last week against the other Kansas team. Kansas might have their quarterback back. Who you got?
Who did I pick in
If
that?
Oklahoma
Kansas
State.
gets the quarterback back, Kansas all day long.
Yeah,
And
I'm
I
taking
think
Kansas.
what is Kansas lost like 3 games in a row now after starting 5-0? Kansas.
Yeah, but they've lost to 3 ranked teams in a row.
I get it, but
seems
still,
worse.
like, I mean, you got to have one coming up soon. So
Yeah, give me
I think
Kansas.
I'll take Kansas.
Give me
I'll
the
take
Hogs.
Oklahoma State.
Give me the Jayhawks.
They're bouncing back.
Dude, it's hard to lose 48-0 and come out and win the next week. That's the only reason I'm taking Kansas. They got
Yeah,
killed,
I get
dude.
that, but on the flip side, those guys are gonna feel like they have a lot to prove.
A lot to
That's
prove.
true.
Yeah, 48 points to make up.
They're not gonna have to score 48 points against Kansas.
If their quarterback's back, they are.
Yeah, Kansas is
That
fine.
man's fire. Syracuse at Pitt. I got Pitt.
Pitt.
I do too.
Syracuse is on a downward spiral.
Fraudulent.
No team Clemson played is going to be ranked after the season's over.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think Syracuse is becoming fraudulent now. In my
Quarterback's hurt too.
opinion. Yeah. So I mean, he never
Is that
throws the
their
ball.
quarterback Carlos Del Rio? Is that their quarterback
Like
now,
Jack
or
Del Rio
is
son?
he starting? No, he's not. That's Luke Del Rio.
Okay,
He
there we
was
go.
our quarterback.
Okay. I was like, I knew there was another Del Rio I'm forgetting about.
No, Carlos Del Rio was on our roster a couple years ago, though he transferred out, and I know he went to Syracuse. I wasn't sure if he was starting or not.
I'm not. No, he hasn't been starting. He might be the backup, so he might be starting
Okay.
this week. I don't know.
Okay.
Who you
Yeah,
got?
Pitt.
You didn't say anything on that one, Tyler.
Let me go. I'm actually gonna pick Syracuse in this game. Yep. Didn't Pitt lose? Didn't Pitt lose to? No, Pitt didn't
Georgia
lose to Tech.
Tech?
Yeah, Pitt lost to Tech, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Sorry, I can't respect Pitt anymore.
yeah, it was bad. Wake at NC State. It's top 25 matchup. I mean, I think Wake wins big. It's going to be ugly.
NC State's without Devin Leary still, and he's not coming back. Wake.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wake.
Yeah. Wake's a pretty safe bet there, I think. Even though I think most people have picked NC State, which is kind of funny.
Which is weird. Michael Hoover, who you got? Did you say?
What?
Yeah, Wake. I'm with you, Wake.
Texas at K-State. This could be a really good game. I mean, both are ranked in the top 25, another top 25 matchup. K-State looked good last week, but does Texas kind of bring them down to earth?
No, Texas ain't back. Still ain't back. Never been back.
Texas is back.
No, I'm tired of making fun of Kansas State. I'm actually gonna pick them for once. You don't win
Who you
40.
got?
You don't win 48-0 for no reason.
Who you got, Dustin?
I can't say Texas forever right now. I'm going with Kansas State. I mean, Texas has been off and on. They have these glimmers where they look like one of the best teams, and Quinn Ewers looks unstoppable, and now they look like crap again. So I'm taking Kansas State.
Hoover?
Clear eyes, full heart, can't lose.
Will lose.
Texas.
Texas.
Hey,
love the
I don't
Tommy
like
Hot
Texas. I just wanted to quote that. I do pick them though.
You could have just changed it a little bit.
Here's the thing, though. I feel like this is the favorite part of my year, though, because it's like Brandon Burns gets so excited, like Kansas State all the way. We won 48-0. We're the best team. Blah blah. and then they get whooped by Texas. Just the disappointment that he spews after that.
No.
Texas forever, baby.
Don't
I'm
do
going
that to
Texas on this.
Brandon, I'm apologizing now because I've talked so much smack about Kansas State every time you pick them. I'm gonna be nice this week and I'm gonna pick them. That's probably your doom there. Like it's not a good.
Yeah,
thing.
they'll lose fine.
They'll lose now.
Clemson at Notre Dame. That's kind of a
Can I hate two teams worse than us two?
Yes,
you do
could.
hate.
Yes,
I can't stand either.
Tennessee and Georgia.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's fair. It's like asking Bane to show up in the middle of the Tennessee-Florida game. Just take out the stadium.
Well,
So
I said that I'm not picking against Clemson all year, so I'm taking Clemson.
I agree. I think is DJ still playing? I don't remember who played this weekend. Was it DJ or Cade?
It depends what time you ask Dabo.
It's still DJ.
Okay. If it's still DJ and oh man, I don't know. That's hard, man. I'm gonna go Clemson.
Go
this
ahead.
is an easy game. I don't even know why we're discussing it. Notre Dame big.
Yeah, I picked Notre Dame as well. I was about to show. I don't know if I can show it. I've got my pick on here. I've picked Notre Dame. I did this.
Dude, Notre Dame is about it's there to it's at Notre Dame too. I mean, does Clemson even have a quarterback right now? Who knows? I mean,
Dabo's going to
Notre
run out there
Dame
and
is
play
playing
quarterback.
good right now.
The way that Dabo runs out of the tunnel, he's just going to play quarterback too.
DJ's
Trey
played
Williams is
better
gonna be
this year.
crying.
DJ's improved a lot this year. He had that awful game recently.
That's not saying
But-
much. Last year was so bad.
You can't get any worse.
He threw more touchdown passes to other teams than he did to his own. Like, there's a lot of improvement to be made there.
Hey, listen, I know what I'm talking about when it comes to bad quarterback play. Now, DJ can do it.
He can do it, and the defense can help.
All right, so we're all agreeing Notre Dame's going to win. Even if you didn't pick Notre Dame, you're picking Notre Dame.
Book it.
Hey, we already talked about this. We all said Bama's. Well, Tyler, you have LSU.
Yeah, I
don't
picked
you?
LSU.
All right, and then we're all agreeing. The rest of us have Bama. We're all agreeing that Georgia's going to beat Tennessee.
Yeah.
We kind of gave our score predictions and dug into that. So that leads us to our final moments of the show. Who's everyone's super dog of the week? More than a touchdown dog, and they're going to win outright. Who you got?
How many super dogs did I just pick? I just picked a bunch.
Wait, I'm sorry. Can you refresh my memory? What is the super dog?
They have to more than a touchdown dog, and you're
Okay.
saying they're going to win outright.
Okay.
I'll lead it off. I think Nebraska knocks off Minnesota. 16-point dog. Nebraska gets the W. Minnesota's looked terrible lately.
I looked earlier today and I could not find one. I really couldn't.
Dustin, you just got to go out on a limb, bro.
Well, if I'm going out on a limb,
Yeah, I mean mine's LSU. That's gonna be my
Yeah.
super dog. I mean that's pretty obvious.
Josh,
Josh, take that
man.
back.
I have no idea.
Clemson's
It's
had-
hard this week.
Well, I don't really know what the spreads are. I don't have those in front of me.
Just pick an underdog that you think's going to win.
and I-
Gators, baby.
Aren't they off?
I mean, I kind of think. Who do you think wins the Florida at Texas A&M game? That's not a game we had down, but who do y'all got before we close out?
Which one?
Florida Texas A&M.
Florida A&M.
Oh, they play. God,
Um,
yikes.
yeah. This is an ugly game.
Yeah,
in the
I'm actually gonna say Florida.
Florida big.
I'm gonna say Florida
Yeah,
wins that game.
I
handedly.
think we can win. I do think we can win. I think especially the quarterback at A&M is an unknown. He could be crazy good, or that could have been a first game rookie, and then the next game everyone has film on him and he gets clobbered.
it's
But I'm gonna go. What are we laughing at?
Josh said Liberty over Arkansas. It's having me laughing.
Hey, don't
I'll
laugh.
say this.
Don't laugh. That'll
Why is
happen.
that funny? That will actually happen.
because
Could actually happen.
because somebody like angry reacted to it.
Probably
Liberty's
Drew.
gonna
It's Drew Miller.
Liberty's
It
gonna
was definitely
smoke
Drew.
Arkansas.
as long as Florida doesn't wear those ugly alligator skin
We only wore those
Texas
once,
A&M.
and we did beat them, so I'm open.
Oh, those were hideous.
They were awful. They were awful.
Look, the fact that you're even comparing, we all know Jim Blow is going to blow it. There's no way Texas A&M wins this game. Florida wins big. God, Texas A&M's the worst team in the SEC. Let's face the facts. I'm so tired of it. You picking them. Golly.
Is it bad that
Everyone-
I think Vanderbilt's a better team?
I honestly, no, but A&M, they're not good, but guys, Florida is really bad this year. I hate coming on here and talking like that, but I really do think that it's going to be whoever's just a little ugly wins this game, a little less ugly wins this game, and I think Florida is a little less ugly, 28-27.
All right.
55-7. Anyway,
28
what, Dustin?
All right. Kentucky's a 2-point favorite over Missouri. I got Missouri beat Kentucky.
I got Missouri in that game too, dude. I think Missouri is going to beat Kentucky as well. And I think Liberty's going to beat Arkansas.
Just happened.
It happened.
What you got, Tyler? You got anything to say, man?
No, I'm just laughing at these comments.
Go Liberty.
James Madison over Louisville.
Go.
That's for you, Drew. Love you, man.
That could actually happen too. That's a good pick. I'm changing mine to Liberty over Arkansas. Sweat gave us a good point on that. Anyway, guys, y'all have anything to say before we close out?
No, good to go.
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. This was a blast.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for joining us.
Maybe we can have you back on for college basketball, Michael, and your basketball team will look a lot better this year. I know Georgia took y'all.
We have their coach, bro.
I know. I don't know. They might. I don't know.
So, that is so weird.
I know.
We'll have you on
That's
for
gonna be so
We
weird.
take Brent Cox. We take Mike White. There it is.
We'll have you on for the 7-Eleven Dollar Tree Bowl whenever you guys get there.
If they get there.
That
All
is
right,
a-
anyway, guys. Thank everyone for joining us tonight. It's been a good week. It's been fun. We're excited about this week. We'd love to hear your comments, and we're inching towards that 1,000 mark. So keep inviting friends. Also, go and like the All Talk Conference profile page because we haven't really been pushing that, but we do need people to like it. That way our content can be shared by everybody. Anyway, have a great week. We appreciate you joining us. Deuces.
Deuce.
Are we?